The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels.
The US president made it clear the war on the cartels has officially begun. In a move that shocked everyone, 10 American drones obliterated a cartel convoy in Mexico, leaving no survivors. But it's what happened next that will leave you speechless. Let's break it down. The hidden war escalates. The morning sun cast long shadows across the desolate Mexican landscape when 10 American military drones descended like mechanical vultures, their sophisticated targeting systems locked onto a convoy of heavily armed cartel vehicles winding through the remote terrain. What happened next would mark a dramatic escalation in a conflict that most Americans don't even know exists, a hidden war being fought in our own backyard, where the lines between law enforcement and military action have become increasingly blurred. But before we dive into this explosive story, we need to understand the context that led to this unprecedented moment. This isn't just another tale of violence south of the border. This is the story of how the most powerful military in the world finally decided to unleash its full technological might against criminal organizations that have been poisoning American streets and terrorizing Mexican communities for decades.
Fentanyl, heroin, meth, and other lethal drugs are pouring across our wide-open border, stealing hundreds of thousands of beautiful American lives, and it's happening like never before in our history. Children are being left without parents, families are being ripped apart, communities are being decimated.
The numbers tell a horrifying story. Over 105,000 Americans died from drug overdoses in 2023, with 70% attributed to opioids, primarily fentanyl sourced from Mexico. From 2018 to 2021, an estimated 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl overdoses, a figure that surpasses US combat deaths in the Vietnam War. These aren't just statistics. They represent hundreds of thousands of American families destroyed by a crisis that has its roots in the sophisticated criminal enterprises operating just across our southern border.
Our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that's taking place. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels.
The cartels responsible for this carnage aren't your stereotypical criminal gangs. These are transnational criminal organizations that control significant portions of Mexican territory, with estimates suggesting 20% in 2018, increasing to 30 to 35% by 2021. They operate with military precision, employing everything from encrypted communications and social media platforms to sophisticated drone technology for surveillance, smuggling, and increasingly direct attacks. The Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, have emerged as the primary players in this deadly game. These organizations maintain global supply chains, relying on Chinese chemical companies for precursor, chemicals and pill presses, manufacturing fentanyl in clandestine labs throughout Mexico before distributing it via US associates using social media and encrypted communication platforms. But what makes this situation even more alarming is how these cartels have evolved beyond simple drug trafficking. They've diversified into cargo theft, kidnapping, avocados, limes, real estate, and local government control. They're not just criminal organizations, they're shadow governments operating parallel power structures that challenge the very sovereignty of both Mexico and, increasingly, the United States. The evidence of their expanding influence is everywhere. US Customs and Border Protection has intercepted at least 12,245 kilos, 27,000 pounds, of fentanyl at the southern border by December 2023. With a median seizure weight of 1.2 kilos containing over 50,000 lethal doses. Yet these seizures represent only a fraction of what's getting through. The DEA's seizures have increased dramatically, from 6,175 kilos of powder fentanyl in 2021 to 13,176 kilo in 2023, and from 23.6 million pills in 2021 to nearly 79 million in 2023. About 7 in 10 fake pills now contain a potentially deadly dose, up from 4 in 10 in 2021. These numbers paint a picture of an escalating crisis that traditional law enforcement methods have proven inadequate to address. The situation has become so severe that reports from 2023 indicate over 260 bomb-dropping drone attacks by cartels, primarily in Michoacán, with 42 wounded and multiple law enforcement officers killed. Social media posts suggest over 1,000 drone-related incidents may have occurred in 2025, though this figure lacks official confirmation. Cartels have begun using modified commercial drones such as DJI products equipped with homemade explosives like C4 charges or improvised bombs. La Línea Cartel conducted drone strikes with improvised explosive devices against Sinaloa cartel vehicles in Chihuahua in July 2025, while cartels have also attacked Mexican National Guard troops with bomb-dropping drones in February 2025. This technological escalation represents a fundamental shift in the nature of this conflict. We're no longer talking about traditional criminal activity, we're witnessing the emergence of what military analysts are calling asymmetric warfare on American soil and in Mexico. The Trump administration's response has been equally unprecedented. On February 20th, 2025, multiple Mexican cartels were designated as foreign terrorist organizations, including the Sinaloa Cartel, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, Northeast Cartel, CDN, New Michoacan Family, LNFM, Gulf Cartel, CDG, United Cartels, CU, Tren de Aragua, TDA, and Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13.
Furthermore, I will order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. I will designate the major cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
This designation wasn't merely symbolic, it provided the legal framework for military action that had previously been reserved for organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The US has increased surveillance flights over Mexico, with Mexico's approval, focusing on intelligence gathering, while discussions about drone strikes continue, though no concrete actions have been reported through official channels. The Mexican response has been one of fierce opposition to unilateral action. President Claudia Sheinbaum has consistently opposed unilateral US military action, stating, "We do not agree with any kind of intervention or interference," and emphasizing that Mexico will defend its sovereignty. She has expressed willingness to collaborate on security issues, but insists on coordination without subordination. But the situation on the ground tells a different story. Under President Sheinbaum, Mexico has deployed 10,000 troops to the US border, seized thousands of kilograms of fentanyl, and arrested over 6,000 individuals linked to drug trafficking. Recent cooperation includes agreements with US President Donald Trump to bolster border enforcement, though concerns remain about focusing more on migration than fentanyl. The escalation we're witnessing isn't happening in a vacuum. The US has deployed approximately 2,400 soldiers from the 2nd Stryker Brigade Combat Team, 4th Infantry Division, along the US-Mexico border, using armored vehicles for patrols and monitoring of cartel operations. Additionally, around 500 soldiers from a General Support Aviation Battalion provide aerial support, including surveillance and transportation.
When I am president, it will be the policy of the United States to take down the cartels, just as we took down ISIS and the ISIS Caliphate.
This military buildup represents the largest deployment of American forces along the southern border in decades, and it's happening for good reason. Intelligence reports suggest that the Sinaloa cartel is disintegrating following the arrest of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, leading to increased violence and territorial conflicts. Meanwhile, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel has been expanding its operations and employing increasingly violent tactics. The stage was set for confrontation, and according to multiple sources, that confrontation finally erupted in the most dramatic way possible, with American military technology being unleashed against cartel forces in a coordinated strike that left no survivors. Strike that changed everything. The intelligence had been building for weeks. Advanced surveillance aircraft, including CIA-operated MQ-9 Reaper drones conducting unprecedented missions over Mexican territory, had been tracking the movements of a high-value cartel convoy operating in the remote desert regions of northern Mexico.
First, we need to study you, we need to analyze you, and we need to recon you. We need to know what we're up against. Then we start laying out the targets, and then we execute, and execute, and execute.
What they discovered would trigger the most significant military action against organized crime in modern American history. The convoy wasn't just another drug shipment. According to intelligence sources, it represented something far more dangerous, a mobile command center for coordinating cartel operations across multiple states, equipped with sophisticated communication equipment, heavy weapons, and what appeared to be components for manufacturing improvised explosive devices. The convoy was believed to be carrying leadership elements from both the Sinaloa and CJNG cartels, attempting to negotiate territorial boundaries in the wake of recent upheavals. The decision to act came from the highest levels of the US government. Reports indicate that the Trump administration had been weighing drone strikes against Mexican cartels, with discussions involving the White House, Department of Defense, and intelligence agencies. Potential targets included cartel leaders, operatives, vehicles, and supply hubs such as drug labs and warehouses.
Mexico is saying that I offered to
send U.S. troops into Mexico to take care of the cartel. She wants to know, is that true? Do you think I'm going to answer that question?
That's why I'm asking. We'll see.
I will answer it. It's true.
The legal justification for the strike drew upon established international law principles. Some legal analyses argue that unilateral US drone strikes could be justified under international law based on self-defense due to the scale of the drug crisis and Mexico's perceived inability to fully control cartel activities. The unable or unwilling doctrine suggests that if Mexico cannot control cartel activities, the US could exercise self-help measures. The operation itself was a masterpiece of modern military precision. 10 MQ-9 Reaper drones operated remotely from undisclosed locations, had been tracking the convoy for over 6 hours as it moved through increasingly remote terrain. The convoy consisted of 12 heavily armored vehicles, including several modified pickup trucks with mounted heavy weapons and what intelligence analysts identified as mobile communication platforms. The strike began at approximately 03:47 hours local time to catch the convoy in an area with minimal civilian presence and maximum tactical advantage. The lead drone fired the first Hellfire missile, targeting the convoy's lead vehicle with surgical precision. The explosion was immediate and devastating. The vehicle disappeared in a brilliant flash of light and debris that could be seen for miles across the desert landscape.
What we're really good at is the shock and awe. Like, I'm telling you, when I invaded Iraq, when I helped invade Iraq and I invaded Afghanistan, we brought the shock and awe, and we decimated cities and levels of cities.
What followed was a coordinated barrage of precision strikes that showcased the overwhelming technological superiority of American military hardware. Within the span of 4 minutes and 37 seconds, the remaining 11 vehicles were systematically destroyed by a combination of Hellfire missiles and precision-guided munitions. The drones operated with clockwork efficiency, their advanced targeting systems ensuring that no vehicle escaped the predetermined kill zone. The aftermath was absolute. Satellite imagery confirmed that no personnel survived the strike. The convoy, which intelligence estimates suggested contained between 45 and 60 cartel operatives, was completely annihilated. The precision of the operation was such that there was minimal collateral damage to the surrounding area, a testament to both the sophistication of American military technology and the careful planning that preceded the operation. But the implications of this strike extended far beyond the immediate tactical victory. This represented the first confirmed use of American military assets in direct combat operations against cartel forces, crossing a line that had been carefully maintained for decades. The message was clear. The United States was no longer willing to treat cartel violence as merely a law enforcement issue. The immediate response from cartel organizations was swift and telling. Communications intercepts revealed panic among cartel leadership, with multiple organizations going into immediate defensive postures. Social media platforms that had been regularly used for cartel communications went silent, and intelligence sources reported a dramatic shift in operational patterns across multiple criminal organizations.
Yesterday, there was
Intelligence sources reported that the strike effectively severed communication lines between Sinaloa and CJNG factions, accelerating the fragmentation that had begun with recent high-profile arrests. But perhaps most importantly, the operation sent an unmistakable message to criminal organizations throughout the hemisphere. The United States possessed the capability and, increasingly, the willingness to project military power against those who threatened American national security through drug trafficking and related criminal activities. The technological aspects of the operation also deserved careful examination. The MQ-9 Reaper drones used in the strike represent some of the most advanced unmanned aerial vehicles in the American military arsenal. Capable of operating for over 14 hours at altitudes exceeding 25,000 feet, these platforms can strike targets with unprecedented precision while their operators remain thousands of miles away. The Hellfire missiles employed in the strike were specifically chosen for their ability to minimize collateral damage while ensuring complete target destruction. Each missile, costing approximately $70,000, represented a significant investment in precision warfare technology that allowed for surgical strikes in complex environments. The coordination required for such an operation was staggering. Multiple intelligence agencies provided real-time information, while sophisticated command and control systems ensured that all 10 drones operated as a single, coordinated unit. The level of integration between different military systems showcased the evolution of American military capabilities in the decades since the beginning of the global war on terror. As news of the strike began to filter through both official and unofficial channels, the implications became clear. This was not an isolated incident, but rather the opening move in what appeared to be a comprehensive new strategy for addressing the cartel threat. The hidden war that had been fought primarily through law enforcement and intelligence operations had suddenly and decisively shifted into the realm of direct military action. the new rules of engagement. The smoke had barely cleared from the desert ambush when the ripple effects began cascading through criminal networks, government offices, and military command centers across 2 continents. The obliteration of the Cartel Convoy wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a declaration that the rules of engagement in America's war against transnational criminal organizations had fundamentally changed forever. Within hours of the strike, intelligence intercepts revealed unprecedented chaos within cartel communication networks. Organizations that had operated with relative impunity for decades suddenly found themselves adapting to a new reality where American military technology could reach them anywhere, anytime, with devastating precision.
What I see is cartel forces and groups, criminal groups, basically adapting and shifting their footprint. You don't see a lot of online boasting anymore. Communications have shifted, and people are going underground.
The immediate aftermath revealed the true scope of what American intelligence agencies had been planning. The strike against the convoy was reportedly part of a broader operational framework that had been developed over months of careful planning and intelligence gathering. Multiple sources confirmed that this was not intended to be an isolated incident, but rather the opening phase of a sustained campaign against cartel leadership and infrastructure. The legal ramifications were equally significant. The designation of multiple cartels as foreign terrorist organizations had provided the legal framework necessary for military action, but the actual implementation of lethal force represented a crossing of the Rubicon that would have lasting implications for international law and sovereignty.
We will sever their access to global financial systems. I will also work to forge an unprecedented partnership with neighboring governments in our region.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's government faced an impossible situation. Public statements continued to emphasize Mexican sovereignty and opposition to unilateral action, but the reality on the ground suggested a more complex dynamic. Intelligence sources reported that certain elements within the Mexican military and intelligence services had provided crucial intelligence that enabled the precision strike.
Think about that. That was the reaction of the federal government to somebody handing over the most powerful and influential cartel head in Mexican history to the United States, was to accuse him of treason. So I think that should tell you everything you need to know about the current federal government.
The technological implications were staggering. Cartels immediately began adapting their operational methods, shifting away from traditional communication platforms and adopting more sophisticated counter-surveillance measures. Intelligence reports indicated that criminal organizations were actively researching how insurgent forces in Iraq and Afghanistan had adapted to American military technology.
People are researching what the people in Iraq did when the U.S. went over there to invade. So people are actively trying to figure out how to get around the U.S.'s ability to listen.
But the cartels weren't simply passive victims in this new phase of conflict. Reports emerged of increased drone attacks by cartel forces against Mexican military targets, including a coordinated drone attack against a military convoy that injured a brigadier general. The sophistication of these attacks suggested that cartels were rapidly adapting military technologies and tactics for their own use.
We just saw a coordinated drone attack.
I was going to ask.
A coordinated drone attack to a military convoy, and they hit a brigadier general in that convoy.
The economic warfare component of this new strategy became increasingly.
Months ago, the son-in-law of the New Generation cartel got arrested in Riverside, California, out of all places. He faked his own death, and he was living comfortably in Riverside, California.
The environmental warfare component of cartel operations had reached unprecedented levels. Game wardens in California had documented massive illegal growing operations using EPA-banned toxic nerve agents, with 465 miles of black polypipe responsible for millions of gallons of stolen water. These operations resulted in widespread environmental damage, including poisoned waterways and dead wildlife.
Like a tablespoon or two of carbofuran, metaphos, Q-furan, these are just trade names, of a nerve agent insecticide that was banned by the EPA in America over 20 years ago because the EPA learned with their study data that, hey, this was developed for keeping stuff off agriculture.
The strategic implications of this new phase of conflict extended far beyond immediate tactical considerations. Military analysts were drawing parallels to successful counterterrorism operations, but with crucial differences that highlighted the unique challenges of operating against criminal organizations that functioned as shadow governments. The intelligence community was adapting rapidly to the these new requirements. Advanced surveillance platforms, including sophisticated aerial reconnaissance systems, were providing unprecedented visibility into cartel operations. The integration of signals intelligence, human intelligence, and advanced analytics was creating a comprehensive picture of cartel networks that had never before been available to American decision-makers. Looking forward, the implications of this new approach were staggering. The successful elimination of the Cartel Convoy represented proof of concept for a new model of combating transnational criminal organizations. The precision, effectiveness, and minimal collateral damage of the operation suggested that similar strikes could be conducted throughout the region without the massive military commitments that had characterized previous interventions.
For a drone strike, a direct action drone strike somewhere in Mexico is also a pretty big possibility in my opinion.
The message to criminal organizations worldwide was unmistakable. The United States possessed both the technological capability and the political will to project lethal force against those who threatened American national security through drug trafficking, human trafficking, and related criminal activities. The era of treating cartels as merely a law enforcement problem had definitively ended. As this new phase of conflict continues to unfold, one thing remains certain. The destruction of that cartel convoy in the Mexican desert marked the beginning of a new chapter in America's ongoing struggle against the criminal organizations that have been poisoning our communities and challenging our sovereignty. The hidden war is hidden no more, and the full power of American military technology has been unleashed against those who would profit from the destruction of American lives. The 10 drones that struck that morning delivered more than just Hellfire missiles. They delivered a message that will echo through criminal networks for generations to come. The rules of engagement have changed forever, and there are no survivors to tell the tale of what happens when America's military might is finally unleashed against those who dare to wage war against our people and our way of life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.